What's up, you beautiful people? Welcome back to another episode of Unaligned and Unfiltered. I'm your host, Jack, or the Twisted Wander, and welcome back to Twisted Thursday, where every Thursday we sit down and talk about the twists of our lives. This Thursday, I'm talking to you all about ADHD because you know what? My mom, when I was diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 13, was told, your daughter has a learning disability, Patricia. She has an IQ of 75 and she's never going to advance. Yeah. So that's why we're talking about ADHD, because that diagnosis and those words and just the shame that came with ADHD is the narrative that I've believed over the last 20 years. And through therapy, just starting at the age of end of 32, beginning of 33, I've almost been on this journey for almost a full 2 years. I'm so grateful I started therapy. I had no idea it would lead me to understanding ADHD more. So I'm really grateful for that. And I just think it's really important to talk about ADHD because the shame that I've carried for years is just, it's not great. And I can't imagine that I'm the only one who has dealt with this. So today, talking ADHD. I would like to say I'm not a medical professional. This is my lived in experiences. So please take this, just take this as advice from a fellow neurospicy, sparkly friend. But again, not a medical professional, just someone sharing their shared lived in experience. So ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, right? So, like I said, I was diagnosed at 13. Yeah, the same year as my scoliosis. Go figure. And all they told me and my mom was, you have ADHD, it's learning disorder. That was it. That was the whole explanation. And like I said, for 20 years, I thought everything that was happening to me, the struggles, failures, and shame, was all my fault. And what I'm learning now is that it wasn't. And that there are reasons to why we are the way we are if we do have ADHD. And there's so many things inside of ADHD umbrella that are starting to make sense to me about my own life because I'm learning it's so much fucking more than a learning disorder. So let's go on this journey. So at 13 years old, I was really, really struggling in school. It was my first year of 7th grade. Gave you a little hint there. My first year of 7th grade. So I was struggling a lot in school. And that obviously led to me eventually being held back in 7th grade. So I had 2 7th grades and actually have with me my report card for 7th grade. And it's just really funny because if you really do like look back on your life, I shouldn't be recording this podcast, right? I shouldn't be able to record, edit, upload, and, talk to you all, right? If I was never going to advance in life with an IQ of 75. So that's why I want to talk about this today. So I got left back, and then my mom, of course, because she's amazing, did everything she could that she believed would help me. And given the information she was given, which wasn't a whole lot, that's what we worked with. So after my mom decided to, we decided that it would be best for me to repeat the 7th grade, we started to go through testing. So I got an IEP, I started to get accommodations, and then I eventually also got put on Adderall. And the thing I want to just pause here and talk about, I currently am not medicated on medicine for ADHD. This experience specifically led me to never really look into this again, like kind of just wanted to forget this experience. So IEP, which is an individual education plan, I believe, and And then medicine Adderall is usually used for people with ADHD. It is a stimulant and it helps people with ADHD. It helps us focus and have more energy. Because if you do have ADHD, one of the biggest things that we lack is dopamine, kind of like the woo energy kind of thing, right? So it gives you energy, dopamine. ADHD people who have ADHD are usually lowerly depleted with dopamine. So that can, yeah, I digress. But that is why stimulants are needed or usually prescribed for ADHD to help with the attention and the lack thereof energy from the depleted dopamine. To share my experience with this medication, I personally started having nightmares. My mom eventually took me off this medicine because she was really concerned for my well-being. I was having nightmares specifically of my mom looking like Freddy Krueger, and it was terrifying. I also remember not being able to get out of dreams, and my mom was like, "What the fuck? Absolutely not. Like, what's going on?" And she just took me off of it. She was like, "Absolutely not." And pretty much like raw dogged ADHD my entire life, really. Still going strong. So once so after we kind of tried Adderall, never did medicine again, but as I started to go into high school and everything, I had accommodations, but I will say now looking back, the accommodations that we get most of the time are the accommodations that are just within the system that they think will be fair enough for other students who don't have ADHD, right? You never want to be unfair. Meanwhile, it wouldn't be unfair because those people don't have fucking ADHD. Don't get me started on that. But what we can talk about here is when you go through life not understanding a diagnosis fully and only having that narrative that you have a learning disorder, that you're never going to advance, and that you're not smart, and your value is being tied to how well you're performing in school, it really doesn't set you up for, letting those thoughts go away into adulthood. And I know my mom did the best she could. She's an amazing mom. My dad's amazing. Everyone always told me that I could be whatever I wanted to be. But the truth is, I didn't believe that. I don't think I still 100% believe that today. I know, I'm kind of on that journey of self-love and letting go of the self-doubt because it's so ingrained and stitched onto me through the years of feeling like I needed to perform well in order to be valued. And that is such a dangerous way of thinking. And I hope anyone who's listening who may be a parent, please don't tie your kids' value to how well they perform in school or grades. Because at the end of the day, I can confidently say, as someone who got left back, someone who wasn't the best student in high school, I can confidently say, they scare the shit out of you that like this will follow you your entire fucking life. It doesn't mean shit. Like they beat children, they don't beat children, but like they beat it into our heads that like our value comes from fucking grades, and that is just not it, bro. That is not it, okay? It is something that I'm unlearning now. I feel like the whole system is built on it, the education system, work, like just keep performing well and like that's your value as a person. Like, no, okay? You are valuable because you're a human being. That's it. You became valuable as soon as you took your first breath. So I hope you can start to learn that and I can start to learn that together, because the narrative that I've been telling myself for the past 20 fucking years, it needs to be gone. Like our value is not tied to our performance. So it's not tied to what you can do. You are valued just because you're you. So that's my little rant on that. So I want to talk more about how these accommodations almost made me feel worse. So when you get an IEP, I remember specifically in high school, I would go to resource room to take tests, to get extra time on tests, and that's great and everything. But when you finally have like the big test, the Regents test, they didn't let me have my resource room. They let me have extra time, but now I'm in a room that's not small. It has, if you've ever been in a testing room and you have like ADHD or something, like you are going to pick up let's just go with fucking Fred's really fucking annoying breathing next to you. Or maybe fucking Susie is 3 seats ahead of you and she's fucking chewing on her pencil. Or maybe fucking Mark to the left of you is tapping his fucking foot. It's not set up for success for an ADHD person to pass a test in that room. At least for me, okay? Because I know I failed that Regents. I think I got a 21 on my earth science region. So let's just laugh about that. Oh wait, I think I found it like a couple of years ago and I got a 23 and I like called my sister to brag about it. But I share these silly, maybe embarrassing moments with you because here I am. I clearly am doing things with my life and I got left back and I got a 21 or a 23 on my earth science Regents, and I'm here still trying to muddle through this thing called life. So I hope if you are in school and you're feeling stressed, I hope you know that life is so much bigger than junior high, middle school, and high school, and you will figure this out. I just need you to know, just ignore the people who tell you that your value is tied to your performance. It's the worst fucking lie ever. And I think it caused so much self-doubt. And then I kind of want to go back a bit and talk about what everything means under this ADHD umbrella. Just a few things, right? So when I was younger, I would get called like AJ or Angry Jack. And that makes me laugh because what I've learned about ADHD is there is this thing called, for some of us, not everyone gets ADHD the same way, but I'm sharing things that I know it is and how it's presented in my life. And now that I understand that is ADHD, that's how I'm taking that shame away. So as I was saying, Angry Jack, right? There's this thing with ADHD that some of us experience called emotional dysregulation. What? Say it again. Emotional dysregulation. Yeah, AK, it can be hard with people with ADHD to manage our emotions. I don't know. That would have been helpful to know sooner. Just in my personal opinion. But all they told me, it's a learning disorder. That's it. All right. Another one. Have you ever noticed that after a conversation, you're completely overthinking it, hoping that you didn't say anything wrong and that no one's fucking mad at you? You know what that is? Rejection sensitivity disorder, RSD. I need to double check myself. Real quick, RSD. Let's get it right. Let's get it right, my beautiful people. Okay, yes. It's rejection sensitive dysphoria, RSD, is an extreme emotional sensitivity to perceived rejection, criticism, or failure, often linked with ADHD. So it can trigger intense, rapid onset emotional pain, such as overwhelming sadness or rage, often leading to people pleasing or withdrawal. It's not a formal diagnosis, but recognized manageable component of ADHD. So, right? A couple weeks ago, we talked about people pleasing. See how this is all starting to make a little more sense, right? It's like the journey I've been on. Like, what? So maybe you've always felt that way. that is something that you can also look at and be like, oh my goodness, there's nothing wrong with me. My brain is wired this way. And now that I can name it, I can what? Change it or start working on it and knowing that it's there. And like, yeah, that can be a different episode, but just knowing it's there for today. Okay. So, emotional dysregulation, RSD. Okay. Now let's talk about hyperactivity, because when I was younger, hyperactivity definitely looked like I still use fidgeting. I still pick my nails. That is something also learning that can be linked to ADHD, but whatever. But yes. So when I was younger, it looked like, moving my knee a lot. It looked like, just being really hyper, and I am still hyper. Like I still am like, I get bursts of hyperactivity, but how they don't explain how else hyperactivity can present, especially as we get older, is it can present internally as intrusive thoughts, as, I don't know if you've ever had this feeling, but for a lot of us with ADHD, we call it having fucking 50 tabs open at once in our brain, and it's never quiet. And then there's an intrusive thought one day about, like, for me, it's usually like grief or trauma, and it's like a thought that I don't want, that's not helpful, and it just like comes in, and then I have to like overthink that thought and like get myself back. So just knowing that, yes, hyperactivity can present as like bursts of energy, but also hyperactivity is linked to the thought process of a person with ADHD, and how it's like never quiet up here, and how we always have tabs running, and how we're always just so overstimulated in our brain. So that's at least like what it is for me. Another one, are you always late or early or just never specifically on time? Yeah, that's hilarious, because we have time blindness. Some people with ADHD experience time blindness. So let's say, yeah, it's just like, it's actually really funny. Like if someone tells me we have to be somewhere in 5 minutes, like I think some of us with ADHD, we just think like, oh, we can do that. I can blow dry my hair, put my makeup on, and shower in those 5 minutes, when realistically, I can't. It's never been done. But I truly believe it. Truly believe it every time. Okay? So we can have time blindness. We can lose track of time. We can not like, we'll think we'll be able to do something in an allotted time, but like not even someone without ADHD would be able to do that in a allotted amount of time. I hope that makes sense. Energy. Okay? This is where dopamine comes in. Some days we have so much energy, we feel like we can conquer the fucking world, right? We can get so much done I feel like it ranges. We can get a shit ton of work, like 8 hours of work done in 4 hours, or we can like do nothing in 8 hours. Like it's wild how our energy shifts because of dopamine. Dopamine is the thing that gives us energy. And people with ADHD, we have a depletion. So like our energy levels, sometimes we have to chase that dopamine in order to be able to start we do chase dopamine, and we can talk more about this as we talk more about ADHD this season, because this is the first of its episode in its series. I don't know why I'm talking like that. But yeah, so just knowing there's nothing wrong with you. Like, I hope if you wake up one day and you're feeling like real good, and then like the next day isn't so good, very well could be your dopamine, and you're just like low energy and not feeling too hot. So just know that about your ADHD. Decisions. No one told me that ADHD meant like you can experience decision paralysis. That makes so much sense for my whole life. So much sense. Decision paralysis is, for an example, for me, it could be as simple as picking what's to eat. A lot of people with ADHD, I know specifically for myself, I will, let's say I'm really hungry, but I've kind of waited all day to eat. I haven't ate yet that day, because that's another thing we can be bad at is just making time to, yeah, I digress. But decision paralysis, right, is pretty much like, okay, do I want pizza? Do I want tacos? Do I want like Thai food, right? And then just feeling so overwhelmed that you choose to not pick, because picking and making a decision feels so overwhelming. They're just like, fuck that. I'd rather not eat. And that is a true fucking example, okay? And it's something I'm working on. I'm literally working on getting better at eating, because and a few things that can help us. I know some people rely on, delivery service, homemade pre-made meals. These are things that can be very helpful with someone living with ADHD. So if you find yourself maybe feeling so stuck to make a decision, like truly just stuck and paralyzed in decision paralysis, could be worth saying, okay, like, is this a part of my ADHD? Do I have ADHD? Maybe just looking into it as well. Like, all this whole episode is for anyone who has ADHD. And maybe you don't have it or have a diagnosis yet, but you think you've had it. So I hope this is helping. This next one is what really, really gets me. Ideas. So many of us with ADHD have these beautiful fucking ideas, but we have such a hard time getting them to fruition. And do you know why that is? I'll tell you why. Find out. And that's because we have such a hard time with executive function. Hello? If I knew that, I wouldn't shit on myself for the last 20 years. Like, oh, wow, I have another idea, and now I failed to make it come to fruition again. Oh, I had another idea and didn't follow through on that because I fucking suck, because I can't fucking do anything. Like, these are all the things I would tell myself. But now I know, and it's not like a flip of a switch here. This is years of trying to look internally and tell my inner child and inner self, like, yo, like, no, the problem ain't you. You have a spicy brain. And now that you know all that entails, we can start to make a true narrative, because for the last 20 years, it's been a false narrative. So, it really, really sucks. And I'd like to add in something here, especially because I talk about, how I'm doing a podcast and stuff like that. It's because of tools that are accessible that I've been able to start this podcast. And I'd like to talk about it a little bit here. And just like if it wasn't for this specific app, Riverside, like, I would definitely be still on Zoom and still struggling with like editing and da 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 da. It's because of this specific app that I found that has everything all in one place. So this is just making a little case for Riverside in here, because maybe you're listening and you're someone who has an idea to start a podcast and you have ADHD and you're doubting yourself that you can do this. Look into Riverside as a helpful way to start, because it's been a game changer for me. And if that can help you, and yeah, I just like to say that, because here I am like, but here I am having a podcast. Like, Riverside is a huge help to me being able to do this. So I definitely want to throw that in there. So just knowing that if you have an idea and it's a hard time, like getting it to fruition, that's not your own moral failing. That is literally ADHD, and there's nothing wrong with you. And there is ways to get better at this. And there are tools, right? So the last thing that I really, really want to talk about with ADHD is self-worth. I think I'm just starting to build self-worth and self-love, because when we grow up just thinking that we have to do well and that we have to perform well and able to be valued, you don't really get that self-worth that you deserve. And I think everyone deserves to feel like they are worthy and lovable. And ADHD definitely took that away from me. Like I think I always presented myself a certain way, but truthfully, I hated myself for so long. I've cried for hours about just feeling like a failure, feeling like I couldn't trust myself, feeling like there was just something so fucking wrong with me. And I just hate that. I hate that there's other people who may feel that way out there. So yeah, it's just why I share this, because hopefully learning more about ADHD and understanding its fundamentals, that it shows up, and understanding that it's not you, I really, really hope that that can help you start this journey of self-love and healing and looking inward and taking care of your inner child and understanding you did the best with what you knew. So, well, let's move into, I know I said I struggled a lot in school. So I do want to take a minute to show this report card. This is my report card. This is the year that I got left back. As you can see, there are, actually, let's count them together. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. I have 20 F's on this report card. And if you saw the A's, it was obviously girls choir because, yeah, no, I'm just kidding. But that's the only class I got an A in, was choir. So it's just really funny. Oh, and I got a C+ in technology. How cool. But yeah, not a cute report card. And I think there's some B's in there. I think it's like all the artsy ones, but overall, lots of F's. Failed to complete projects, has poor test grades, fails to do homework regularly. Doing satisfactory work. That was in health. AIS math. A pleasure to have in class. Thank you so much. And then regular math. Those are all F's. Has poor test grades, needs to use retesting option. Let's talk about doing bad on a test. Why would I want to retake it? It just took all the energy out and like made me feel like a piece of shit and stupid. I'm not going to magically get better at math overnight. Okay. I don't want to retest. I just want to cry and forget it happened. At least that's what younger me wanted to do. I don't know how I feel now. And then I have like F, D, F, D, D, F in science. And it says improvement since last report. So yeah, this was my getting left back report card. And I save it because honestly, I have a memory box and I'm really grateful I saved this because what I'm doing now in my life, this didn't define it. That moment where they told my mom, your daughter's never gonna succeed to anything. She's always gonna have this. Like, I look at this report card and laugh because of how much I've done with my life. And I raw dogged my entire life of ADHD. Okay? I say raw dog because all this information I'm giving you, I had no idea about ADHD my entire life. That is raw dogging life. It's literally having something and just showing up in the world like you don't have it and just, oh my God, the masking that's done to fit into the boxes of society, to hold a job. Like, I did it. I don't know how. I mean, probably with my friend alcohol. Okay. Coping. That's like another thing with people for ADHD. We are way more likely to abuse substances. Would have been helpful to know, maybe. Yeah. But that's a whole nother episode on its own. I would love to share more about that. But truthfully, because the accommodations that didn't work, that weren't really set for me, that was only really set for the system and what they would allow, right? And I asked, like, could you please not read it out loud? Like, it annoyed me hearing people read questions out loud to me. And then I'm in a room and you're not reading the questions to me, but you're reading out loud to another student. Do you know how fucking annoying that is? Like, no shade to the other student, but it's like, you have these children who need these things, and you're not even willing to listen to them and their needs. You're listening to a need that was decided by a system. This is what we can do for them, and that's it. So while everyone around me like was doing their best, like outside looking in now and years later, they failed. Like, they did what they could, and I had great, like, they're, you know, like, I loved my resource room teacher, Mrs. LaPiccolo, but shout out Mrs. LaPiccolo. But there are some things that like weren't perfect, and they can't be perfect, you know, like the system, as we know, is broken. So please give yourself grace. Please, like, going back to, please don't tie your value to performance. It's truly what had, I think, the biggest impact of my self-shame and my self-doubt. You know, like, we should get praise for being kind to people, for being there for someone, for being a good person. Like, I don't understand what grades have to do with anything. Like, especially in fucking middle school and high school. Should be teaching children. I digress. So what we can take away here is pretty much like, if you don't, you know, all this I'm talking about is childhood, right? But what I really want to get into at this moment now is all of this showed up in work. The self-doubt, the shame, not being accommodated, not asking for accommodations because you didn't want to be a burden. You didn't want to be a bother. And it led to burnout and feeling like no sense of belonging, to be honest, like every job. And I hate that. And I hate that other people may feel this. It really, so what changed, right? Let's kind of move into that. I know I touched a little bit on adulthood, but I really want to focus on what's changed for me since starting therapy and starting to learn about ADHD and the things that I was never told about it. You know, we talked about decision paralysis, RSD, emotional dysregulation, time blindness. So all of that's ADHD. So what does that mean? How can I start to reframe my thinking and start to give love inward and start to shed that shame that I've been carrying around forever? We could start like this. I wasn't broken. I wasn't lazy. I wasn't not trying hard enough. I remember so many times sitting down at a table and hysterically crying, trying to do math or trying to understand science and history, and just crying. Okay. And when you spend your life crying because you don't understand things and people are telling you that you're never going to amount to anything, like, that's what they've told. And I think even if things aren't told directly to a child, children pick up. And maybe I don't remember hearing it, but it goes into your brain. It covers your body for your whole life, your brain. And I hope that makes sense, because that narrative is so deeply embedded in my body that this reframe, of course, is going to take time. But at least now I know that it's fucking possible. There's nothing wrong with me. My brain genuinely just works differently. It is genuinely neurologically made to be different, right? It's generally neurologically different than a neurotypical person. So why should I carry shame? There's no reason to. It's nothing that I did. I was born this way. That's how my brain is. And understanding that and really starting to believe that can change your life and is slowly starting to change mine. So where am I now, right? I'm in the messy middle with you all. I'm not magically healed from my past experiences with ADHD. I'm not magically in love with myself and like just happy all the time. But what I am is I'm in the beginning of figuring it out. I'm learning, I'm healing, I'm working on healing. Little me, like little Jack, who was told she'd never advance to anything. I'm learning to shed the shame I've carried since I was a kid. And I'm understanding that it's okay to need help. And it's okay to maybe start looking at medicines that may work for me. Because once we realize it's not our own fault, I think it's easier to accept help. And for a long time, I was really, really afraid of medicine. Like night terrors, like seeing my mom as Freddy Krueger. No, thank you. Why would I want to try medicine again? Okay. And also, I don't know if I've ever shared this, but I was epileptic. I had a grand mal seizure when I was 4, and I was on epileptic medication from like 4 to 13 or 14 years old. So taking medicines every day, along with like the ADHD medicine not working well for me. I didn't really have a great history there with medication. So I was kind of just always like, that was the one thing I knew existed for ADHD was medicine, but I was just like, I'm never going to do that because like I'm not in school anymore. You kind of relate it to just being in school. But when we get older and ADHD changes, it can show up so differently in our 30s, and it can make life way more like not manageable. And I think that was the thing. Like my ADHD was spiraling out of control at the beginning of my 30s because again, I didn't understand that it was so much more than a learning disorder. Then you look in your life and you could see like all the aspects of it, and you're just like, oh my God, that's ADHD. And like, how do I get to the side where I'm working with my brain and not against it? That is the journey that I'm on. And I share all this with you, all these vulnerabilities, because it's just so important. I have nothing to hide here. And I just feel like, I don't know. I had a brain fart. I'm so sorry. So I guess my biggest thing I want to say to you all here is I'm not here with the answers. I'm here learning alongside you all, right? That is what I want you to take away from this. And what I also want to share is what has helped me learn. Therapy, 100%. I know I say it a lot, but specifically working with a therapist who understands ADHD and my needs. Like I personally needed, and I didn't go there looking for ADHD, but I did look for someone who was well-versed in like trauma and like grief. And then through those conversations, we were able to talk about ADHD because I did tell them I had the diagnosis. And then from there, I was able to learn so much more about ADHD and like how trauma and ADHD correlate. And that's an episode we'll talk about. And just being in a safe space with someone who truly understands how heavy challenging and emotionally draining ADHD can be when it's out of control, I felt so seen. Because for a lot of us, when we admit that we have ADHD, like I can't imagine, like so many times I've heard, everyone has a little bit of ADHD, or I do that too, like, and it can feel so invalidating. And it's just like, it's so nice to sit down with someone who just fucking gets it. So I really, really, really recommend therapy because it's just the best tool for me. Another thing that's really helped me is shout out Tracy Atsuka, okay? ADHD for Smart Ass Woman podcast. This podcast has been a game changer for me, especially for women who are discovering and unpacking ADHD later in life. Finally feeling like someone was speaking my language. This woman has years of experience with ADHD. Her son, I believe, was diagnosed with ADHD, which led her to find out that she had ADHD. And then she just went on this fucking path of just learning all she could about ADHD. And now she helps women from all over find their true potential with ADHD. And just, yeah, I can't recommend this podcast enough. She also came out with a book. It's called ADHD for Smartass Women. I definitely recommend starting there if you maybe maybe aren't ready for therapy, maybe you don't have insurance. ADHD for Smartass Women podcast is definitely a fucking great place to start. Yeah. And then something else I just recently learned about is called CHADD, which is Children and Adults with ADHD. So it's a national resource organization. It's great for education, support groups, and finding professionals in your area because there are things called ADHD coaches. It's something that I maybe eventually will look into. The first part of my journey with all this was therapy, learning more, and honestly, like getting my drinking to be less. So now that I know I've shared that a bit, now that I feel like I'm on my journey with that, now I'm going to start looking at other things because I think my biggest thing with my journey here was really looking inward and accountability and learning. So I definitely recommend all of these. I think Tracy's website is tracyatsuka.com. Her podcast is I've seen it on YouTube. I've heard it on Audible. YouTube, Audible are definitely the two where you can find her. I think she may be on Spotify. I'm not sure. But I will link all of these resources in my bio, in this episode detail. And yeah. So I just want to end on this note. I want to do this series, like specifically ADHD, because I don't want anyone else spending 20 years thinking they're broken when they're not. So that's why we're talking about ADHD. That's why we're talking about so many different topics on this podcast, because for many of us, life is twisted. We need to talk about it because the goal of this podcast is to build a twisted community so people out there know that they are not alone in the twists of their lives, in the curveballs that are thrown at us. I hope you know that you have support. I hope you know that I am always here. I am a resource. I will do whatever I can, what I can to help you. And yeah, so please reach out. You can reach me at twistedwanderer418@gmail.com. And yeah, until then, I hope you will, not hope, but until then, jeez, I cannot talk at the end of this, huh? Until the next episode of my beautiful fucking people, please take care of your brain, take care of your spine. And I love you. And I'll see you in the next episode.